Canada is no stranger to top MMA fighters. In fact, the country is notorious for having produced some of the most elite fighters around. Time and again, Canadians dominate in the sport, which is why we are breaking down the top 5 greatest Canadian MMA fighters of all time. Number 5. Rory MacDonald. When it comes to MMA in Canada, there is one recent name that has been taking the fighting world by storm. While he may be a more recent fighter as far as the public eye is concerned, Rory MacDonald deserves a spot among the top 5 MMA fighters from Canada due to his quick rise in the industry. Rory MacDonald has proved time and again that he is the future of MMA. Starting his MMA career back in 2005, Rory quickly became one of the most promising fighters fighting out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Rory is a former Bellator MMA fighter and once held the Bellator Welterweight World Championship title. He is also a UFC top contender with a record of 9-4 during his time in the most known organization. Having been a professional competitor since 2005, he is a former UFC top contender as well, where he obtained an overall UFC record of 9-4 and challenged for the UFC Welterweight Championship at UFC 189, in a bout against the then champion Robbie Lawler. He is also a former King of the Cage lightweight champion. In his extensive MMA career, Rory MacDonald holds a record of 22 wins, 7 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 7 wins by the referee's decision. Out of the ring, Rory has a pretty unexpected personal life. MacDonald was raised Catholic, however he left the faith early on in his life. In 2019, however, he became a born-again Christian after saying that he had an encounter with God. MacDonald and his wife Olivia have a daughter Maya that was born in 2016 and a son Rocky born in 2019. In recent years, MacDonald left the UFC after being beaten by Stephen Thompson, but has signaled a return if the money was right. Only time will tell whether this will be the case, but there is no doubt he is making massive strides where he is right now. Number 4. TJ Grant. TJ Grant is a retired Canadian MMA fighter who used to compete for the UFC in the lightweight division. He's an interesting case in this list, but very much deserving of his number 4 spot. Grant was once called a dark horse of his division by UFC commentator Joe Rogan. Unlike many of his competitors, he is mostly reserved and not exactly a standout physically. Still, that has not stopped him from becoming one of the best Canadian MMA fighters of all time. TJ Grant's fighting history goes all the way back to high school. He began training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the age of 15, and then also began wrestling later on, going to compete at Cole Harbour District High School. Grant was a 3-time wrestling champion in his province in 2001, 2002, and 2004, and also represented Nova Scotia at the 2001 Canada Games in London, Ontario. Grant has also won several competitions in submission wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in his home country of Canada. TJ Grant started his immense MMA career back in 2007 and had a competitive record of 13-2 before he too decided to sign with the UFC. Grant made his debut in UFC 97 and managed to shock everyone with his win over Japanese fighter Ryo Chonin. While TJ Grant was a powerful fighter, he slowly fell out of the MMA's focus. A major concussion and the birth of his first child changed his trajectory. Finally, in May 2014, TJ Grant and Nate Diaz were removed from the upcoming UFC event because of their rankings, being deemed inactive by the UFC Commission. Over time, TJ Grant has reported that he has given up his dreams of becoming a massive MMA fighter. Now that being said, there is no doubt that the run he did have was an incredible one. He proved time and again what he was capable of. To this day, TJ Grant still remains one of the most prolific Canadian MMA fighters. Grant retired with an MMA record of 26 fights with 21 wins, 4 wins by knockout, 13 by submission, and 4 by decision. In his professional career, Grant only lost 5 battles. Number 3. Joe Durksen. Joe Durksen is a retired Canadian mixed martial arts fighter who ranks high among the best Canadian MMA fighters of all time. He is most commonly referred to as El Dirte for his aggressive fighting style. Of the Canadians on this list, he has always grabbed the attention of fans for his physical appearance. He isn't just known for his craggy nose. El Dirte is also famous for his powerful submission skills. He may not be at the top of the list, but Joe has had one heck of a run in MMA and has quite the lengthy career when it comes to fighters. Joe started his immense professional career in 1999 and lasted until he retired in 2014. He has competed in several MMA organizations such as UFC, WEC, IFL, and King of the Cage. Joe Durksen made his UFC debut in 2004 in the UFC 49 event on August 21, 2004. He lost the fight against Joe Riggs in the second round due to submission. His next major fight in the UFC was against fellow Canadian Patrick Cote in UFC 52 on April 16, 2005. Joe won the battle via choke submission, which was one of the most common ways that he took down his opponents. Durksen has also landed a few roles in Tap-Out Films, the UFC's official entertainment arm. He finally decided to hang up his gloves with a 51-16 record on August 21, 2015. His decision came after a 4-win streak. These days, he is still widely considered among the best Canadian MMA fighters. Number 2. Patrick Cote. Patrick Cote, often dubbed the Predator, is another retired MMA legend fighting out of Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Born on February 29, 1980, Patrick Cote is among the best mixed martial arts fighters in history. Cote is one of the most successful Canadian fighters in the UFC, most notably in the middleweight division. During his prime years, Cote had a shot for the title against one of the UFC's greatest, Anderson the Spider Silva. Sadly, after the loss in the main event, Patrick Cote would never really fight the same. At the time, Cote disappeared from the public eye for some time. Fans would later learn that the fighter had suffered a significant knee injury, which greatly affected his abilities in the cage. Cote's ACL and MCL were torn and had to undergo major surgery. While he was able to recover somewhat, he would never return to the cage with the same explosive power. Still, his legendary fighting performances continue to live on in the hearts of many Canadian fans. Despite losing the fight of his career, there is no denying that Patrick Cote ranks highly on every list of the best Canadian MMA fighters. Number 1. George St Pierre. Topping our list of the best Canadian MMA fighters is the notorious George St Pierre. The retired fighter is not only an MMA legend, but also a former UFC fighter and champion. Born on May 19, 1981, George St Pierre started his unbelievable MMA career in 2002 and did not stop until his first retirement in 2013. During the span from 2002 to 2013, George St Pierre became one of the greatest pound-for-pound strikers in MMA history. Many compare the greatness of George St Pierre to the likes of Anderson the Spider Silva. Unfortunately, a fight between George and Anderson never took place, to the disappointment of many fans, as St Pierre's style is a mix of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling, and considering his size, he remains one of the best specialists in these two techniques to date. St Pierre was a 2-division champion in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, having won titles in the welterweight and middleweight division. St Pierre is a 3-time former UFC welterweight champion, having won the title twice and the interim title once between November 2006 and April 2008. St Pierre was ranked as the #1 welterweight in the world for several years by SureDog and numerous other publications. In 2008, 2009, and 2010, he was named the Canadian Athlete of the Year by Rogers Sportsnet. Fight Matrix lists him as the top MMA welterweight of all time and most accomplished fighter in MMA history. He retired as the reigning welterweight champion in December of 2013, having held the record for most wins in title bouts and the second longest combined title streak in UFC history, 2,204 days, while defending his title 9 consecutive times. He returned to the octagon in November of 2017 at UFC 217, where he defeated Michael Bisping by submission to win the middleweight title, thus becoming the 4th fighter in the history of the UFC to be a multi-division champion. If you have a favorite Canadian fighter, we want to hear from you. Let us know in the comment section who you think is the greatest Canadian MMA fighter, or give us your own lineup. As always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content. This has been our breakdown of the top 5 greatest Canadian MMA fighters of all time.